Hi, class. By now, you should have completed the assignment number one, the archive summary. Now, your next assignment is assignment two, and it's the archive evaluation. And you can find the assignment sheet on our D2L page by going to content. I already had it pulled up, but I'll show you again where you can find it. If you go to content, the table of contents, you'll find it under assignment sheets. Unit 2 Archive Evaluation Assignment Sheet. Click on it, and there you go. I actually had, if you've downloaded it before watching this video, know that I had to go in and make a quick adjustment. And I'll get to that quick adjustment here in a minute. It's not a big adjustment. It was just a problem with a discrepancy with the time in which it was due. But we'll get to that in a second. If you can hear in the background my dog really loudly drinking water, I apologize. So, the assignment. What is an archive evaluation? Well, it's essentially like writing a movie review or a book review. Only this time you're going to do it with your archive. And now my dog is running into the room and wanting to play. I'm really sorry for this, guys. I have a 60-pound lab who loves to play. At any rate, it's like writing a movie review or a book review. Only this time you're writing a review about your archive. So I'll just read the description for you. For this assignment, you will analyze and then evaluate your chosen archive. The first step for this assignment will be coming up with an inquiry question. While you will make a judgment about the archive, these questions should go beyond is the archive good or bad. So a lot of times you'll read a movie review and the movie review will tell you, this movie's not very good. Don't go see it. And then they'll tell you why. Or they'll tell you, it's bad. Don't go see it. Well, we want you to go beyond these questions. We want you to think about the archive, what an archive does, and then think about whether your archive does what an archive should do. Is it a successful archive? So here are some questions you may ask yourself. Examples might be, is this archive an ethical representation of its material? Is the approach of the archive fair and reasonable, or does it privilege certain values or politics? That's a good question that could apply to like the 9/11 archive or the Boston bombing archive. Those are very politically charged events, and therefore the archive, what goes into the archive, is politically charged. So you can start to think about it that way. Is it fair and reasonable? How well do the materials of the archive offer a snapshot of a particular event, time, or place? If each of the items in the archive offer a story or narrative, which stories / which items are the most significant and why? Again, that's a good question for those two archives I just mentioned. Might also be really good for the Tulsa race riots, or what's the other archive I'm thinking of that people wrote about for this class? Oh, the Nuremberg trials, right? So if it tells a story like, what are these items? Are they significant? Are they good? Are they appropriate for this archive? And do they have enough, right? Is the archive substantial enough to offer a narrative? If it's not substantial enough, that could be a problem, right? So another question, does the archive appropriately memorialize a person or a group of people? I don't think anyone wrote about the Richard Pryor archive or the Nelson Mandela, not that I recall, but that's something you can keep in mind. I think somebody's doing the Denshu archive about the Japanese internment camps. That could be a good question worth asking. Who knows? How well does the archive communicate its materials to its imagined audience? Could be a question that applies to all the archives, right? Like, is the archive well organized? Is it easy to navigate? Can people find the information that they want to find? So that's a possible question. And you are not limited to these questions. You can ask other kinds of questions. That is completely up to you. And from these inquiry questions, you will develop a set of criteria upon which you will base your judgment. And using that criteria, explain your judgment to your audience. Now, I'm not going to get into what a criteria is at the moment. Well, I mean, I kind of will, but just not in depth. You'll find more about criteria in the upcoming readings and slideshows. But criteria essentially is, let's go back to an example of a movie. I like particular kinds of movies. The movies that I like are going to be very different from the movies that you like. You might like movies that have lots of action, or I don't know. I don't know. Let's do some hypothetical. Let's say Johnny loves movies with lots of action, lots of sex, and lots of humor. Okay, that's his criteria for a good movie. A good movie should have action, sex appeal, and it should be humorous. That's his criteria. My criteria is a little different. What I think makes a good movie is a good story, great characters, and it tugs on the heart. And now my neighbor's dog is barking, and my dog is about to start barking. Again, I apologize. So that's just a quick idea of what criteria is. It's like what you think makes something good. So now you can start asking your question about criteria regarding these questions, right? If you're going to look at an archive and whether or not highlighting's not working. If you're going to ask a question about the archive and how well it communicates its material, therefore you may have some certain ideas of how an archive should be organized. That's your criteria. And then you'll explain how you feel an archive should be organized, and then explain how it successfully meets this criteria or fails at this criteria. So generically, your evaluation will be similar to a review you might read online, but you will need to tailor it for an academic audience. And we're going to talk about that in upcoming readings and upcoming slideshows. Taking your distinct your distinct writing voice and tailoring it to academic settings. That will help you with your rhetorical situations, okay? One important thing, this goes, I kind of hinted at this with peer reviews, right? Peer reviews are evaluations to a certain extent. You're reading your partner's paper and you're evaluating it. You're telling them, but essentially you shouldn't just be telling them that it's all bad, because that's not the case. Not everything is all bad. And just like not everything is all good, all right? And so you have to think about that too moving into an evaluation. Yeah, let's say that I don't know, what's another archive? The Dust Bowl archive. Let's say it's not the greatest archive. You have problems with it. But that doesn't mean you can't give it a little bit of praise. It has to do something right? It has to do something good. And if you're absolutely in love with the Hurricane Katrina archive, you might need to temper it a little bit, because there's probably something that could be better. So keep that in mind. Not everything is all bad and not everything is all good. This also applies to peer review. You shouldn't just be telling everybody what they did wrong. You should also be telling them what they did right. Okay? So go into your evaluation with that in mind. If you took Comp 1, English 11-13, this assignment is very similar to Essay 3, which was the evaluation essay. So hopefully that'll be helpful. You're just going to be taking the same principles from that and applying it to an archive. Here's my evaluative criteria. This is how I'm going to grade you. So this is another good example of criteria. A good essay should do all of these things. It should, the highlighting in this thing's horrible, but it should have a well-defined evaluative thesis statement. It should be able to establish, define, apply, and support your criteria. It should have evidence to support your criteria. It should have a coherent organization with an introduction, conclusions, transitions, and whatnot. It should use appropriate tone, and it should be free of punctuation errors. Right? So I'm giving you criteria right here. This is my criteria as to what makes a good evaluation essay. Right? This is what I'm going to grade you on. So keep that in mind. This is what criteria is. Your paper should be the minimum of 1,000 words, which is roughly 4 pages, give or take. All right. The paper should be formatted and documented in MLA. That's 12-point font times New Roman font, and it should be double spaced with 1-inch margins left, right, top, and bottom. And it should have headings, page numbers, and a title. We're going to do the same kind of peer review process. It'll be the same way we did it last time, only this time, not only will your classmates review your essays, I will also be giving you feedback, okay? I don't really mention that here in this peer review section, but that is the case. Not only will your classmates be giving you feedback, I will be giving you advice as well. And here are the due dates. The rough draft will be due October 10th. You will, within 2 days from October 10th to October 12th, you will peer review and you will return it to your classmates that Thursday by 8 p.m. And then the final draft will be due by the 15th by 8 p.m. Now, your classmates will get 2 days to look at one paper. All right? I'm going to be looking at drafts. I'm going to be looking at like almost 20 drafts of papers. So I might need a couple more days other than just from Tuesday to Thursday. I'll try to have them back to you by Friday, Saturday morning at the earliest, because that's just a lot for me to do. But I want to give you feedback as much as I possibly can. All right? So that is the assignment sheet. Now, don't forget under content that there is a new, let's find it. There is a new schedule. Okay, new schedule. And if you've downloaded it, okay. I forgot to mention this in the assignment sheet. In the original assignment sheet, everything was due at 5 p.m. I changed it to 8 p.m. because that's when it's supposed to be due. It's not due at 5 p.m., it's due at 8 p.m. So if you already downloaded the assignment sheet before watching this video and the schedule, those will say 5 p.m. Those are wrong. Just remember that they are due at 8 p.m. You have an extra 3 hours. Okay, so here is the schedule. I'm going to give you a work day on Thursday the 21st just to think about your criteria and how you want to evaluate your archive. But I will ask you during that work day, tweet what you think is what makes a successful or a failed archive. What do you think are some possible criteria that makes a good or bad archive? All right. That's what I'm going to want you to do that day. I want you to think about your own archive and how you want to frame it, but then also tell us what are some good ways that we can approach archives via criteria and evaluation. We're going to talk about how to make your writing academic while at the same time making sure that you are your own self in it, okay? We're also going to have a day in which we'll talk about how to write good sentences. It's not what you think. It's not going to be a really in-depth discussion about grammar. It's more or less going to be how can we approach sentences that can be provocative for our readers. And then we're going to have a day about loaded language in which we'll talk about what are some appropriate words for academic settings and what are some inappropriate words, followed by peer review and then another work day. All right. Now, don't forget that for each one of these days, there is a slideshow. So, for example, you're going to be watching this video, you're going to be looking at the archive evaluation assignment sheet. You should also be looking at the writing a review slideshow that I've posted. This is in my Google Docs. It's not necessarily going to look like this, it'll look a little different. And it's essentially going to be a summary of what you're reading in your textbook. It's going to distill everything in a more manageable fashion. I still want you to read, but I also want you to look at the slideshows, because typically at the end of the slideshows, it's an exercise. But don't think I'm grading you exercises. They're like, here's something to think about and here's something you can tweet about. It's almost like a prompt. So if you're ever having problems figuring out what to tweet, well, sometimes at the end of a slideshow, I give you an idea, give you some suggestions. So for example, after you read the assignment sheet and you watch this video and you look at the slideshow, I want you to start. There are 2 reviews in everyone's in an author. I want you to start thinking about how are these people using criteria? What is their criteria? Okay, and then maybe find some online reviews of video games, books, movies, TV shows, and tweet them, share them, and then try to figure out what their criteria is. All right? So that is all I have for you. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to email me. I look forward to reading your summaries. I'm about to start doing that. And two, I also look forward to how you take what you learned in the archive summary and now how you're going to apply that to this evaluation. You summarized it. A lot of you tweeted about how you liked these archives, but now I'm curious for you to think about it a little bit more. Were they really that good? And were they really that bad? Okay? Stuff to think about. All right, gang. That's it. I will talk to you guys soon.